welcome back to Her Impact. I'm Gusande Hilos, and today we're going to talk about the Me Too movement in science. Now, Me Too movement is started from Hollywood, of course, and all these bad guys of Hollywood that were dominated on actresses and other, female of the profession. But thankfully, something happened. I'm not sure what it was. That movement that helped not only actresses but other women, other profession. And science is one of the profession that actually Me Too movement helped a lot. And it helped to address finally the sexual harassment issue that in science is really dominant. And until now, not so many things happen. So because it's a man-dominant profession, we need actually to take a step back and address this issue of sexual harassment. And thankfully, more studies now, more funding is provided to find the data, to actually discover the actual problem, how it is. Because without information how sexual harassment is in science, we cannot take, the appropriate measures to address it, to minimize it, to make the perpetrators pay for what they're doing. Now, why this harassment actually happens in academia? Now, some studies find out that 50%, like half of the women faculty in science, have experienced sexual harassment, which is really, really high number. Like 1 in every 2 women experience that. And some other studies says about 30 to 50% of undergraduate women have experienced sexual harassment. So that is actually a huge number, 30 to 50 undergraduate women. So why this sexual harassment happens so much in science? Well, as Me Too movement says, it's all about abuse of power. And if you see how science works, how this sector works, you understand that usually one professor, the higher hierarchy man usually has got the power over, your salary, over your letter of recommendation to write you for a grant, over all these things are usually in the power of one person. And that's why harassment happens, because of power. Now, this person, the primary investigator, the top in the hierarchy, it has got access to funding and also to students. He's the mentor. So the students really depend on him for funding, for money for their rent and everything. Depends of the situation. For letter of recommendation, for finding a job, for field trips, all these things rely on one person or their professor. So it's quite easy for a person that is harassing to harass at the end of the day. Also, we have scientists that stay in the lab for many hours or in remote areas for their field work. So it's quite easy for harassment to happen in these situations. And because, the work-life boundaries in science really blur, then the perpetrator find opportunities to harass the victims, the students, and the researchers, depends on the situation. So these actually affect the graduates, the students, the victims in a way. They are quality of their work, of course. Some they're afraid to stay in the lab for long hours or go to their field work. I mean, all this is happening. So if happens too much, too brutal, some they choose even to leave science because of this sexual harassment, because of this scandal that rarely come out. And if they do, the victims don't have this protection over them. There are no policies actually to protect them. So this is happening in science, and thankfully for the Me Too movement, especially in America, things are happening that can become better for the sector. Unfortunately, Europe is not so much in doing things to improve. Even in Cyprus, things are way back. I mean, we still do some studies, not so much, to address the issue, but there's no really discussion. And we don't have a discussion, then we're not going to find a way to solve this huge issue of sexual harassment in science. Because that is one of the reasons that women are leaving science. And science is actually disappointing women because of that. So we need to change things. We need to have policies for that. We need to get power back from the professors, from the primary investigators. They have access to huge funding, budgets. So the funding agencies need to have some policies that if these people are harassed, then they're not going to get their funding because of that. So this, in a way, a lot of ways actually to address this problem, to kind of solve it. Things are happening very slow in science. There was also a movement of Me Too STEM movement, which is about women in science, women in STEM. Unfortunately, the founder has some allegations against her. She make Twitter accounts, fake ones, and posts as a Native American scientist that was reporting sexual harassment. So that really changed the movement. But some women came forward because of the movement, and they said about their stories. They share, heartbreaking stories and for losing opportunities, for the pain, their system failing them to protect them. And they were hurt. So some professors in America, there were kind of a huge, actually, list of professors. They were fired, because of that, because of some allegations about sexual harassment. And that is actually, thankfully, good. But also the opposite side of having male professors, male primary investigators, they don't accept to mentor female students because of sexual harassment. So that is the opposite side, that because women are speaking now, male professors don't want them in their team because they are speaking. And their workplace relation actually change over these past few years of the movement, which is actually the end damaging again women because of the male managers, the male primary investigators, the top in the hierarchy. They don't choose women now for work. So again, sexual harassment, even if it's not happening, is damage our careers as a woman in science. And again, women keeping them out of the rightful place in science they have. And maybe minimizing again the numbers of women in science. So the numbers, some studies they show, and the numbers are really huge disappointment. Some other study actually says that 71% of female scientists said they had been sexually harassed during field research. So, I mean, the numbers are huge. If you see how much sexual harassment exists in science. And again, we're not going to do anything if we don't find the data. How big is the sexual harassment? All the studies I'm mentioning now are in USA. And I cannot find some more specifically about the Me Too movement, some studies in Europe, in Cyprus, in Europe, in just near to our environment, unfortunately, which is a big disappointed. That Me Too movement hasn't really influenced Europe in science. Maybe influence other professions, but not in science, not so much in science. And that's why I think that Me Too movement in science didn't really happen so much, because it didn't show a big change. It shows some change maybe in USA, but not so much in other places. And until we have change globally, then we will not have change at all. And Me Too movement is our opportunities as women in science to have finally change, and to have a change that at least is gonna give us some protection as women in science. And the predators, the ones that are doing the sexual harassment, get some punishment and not the funding they are getting now. So this is another episode of Her Impact. Thank you for being with me. I hope I give you some perspective on sexual harassment and the Me Too movement in science. Have a nice day. I'll see you next time with another episode.